Well, there's no question that laptops and desktops are an essential business tool, but increasingly so Blackberries, Windows smartphones, and even phones. We've got Rob Moffat from Wallace Wireless. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks very much for having me.
Canadian software company that's actually developing software that helps businesses communicate more effectively. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your company.
Sure. Well, Wallace Wireless was founded 8 years ago, and we founded it to build wireless applications. And at the time, Blackberry was just emerging, and we actually produced our first applications for one of the banks in Canada on the little Blackberry 950. I don't know if you remember the little pager.
Yeah.
So we've started way back when they first came out with their models, and when you see what kind of devices they have today, clearly they're a portable presentation terminal, and pretty much anything that you can do on your desktop, you can do on the Blackberry now.
Well, you've just released a new software, I guess, package, the Wallace Incident Commander.
Yep.
Can you explain what that's all about? I found that pretty interesting.
Sure. It actually started as a seed out of that bank project where we were putting business continuity and disaster recovery plans out onto the handsets and keeping them up to date. So the Wallace Incident Communicator is now a suite that companies and governments deploy to be able to have information, critical information on their hip whenever they need it, and to be able to communicate with one another in a crisis. So it all leverages the Blackberry security and backs onto the Blackberry PIN network, which has proven itself resilient through 9/11, the power outage in 2003, and Katrina.
So essentially, you could send out messages to anyone in, I guess, in a database or phone book if something bad happened.
In fact, yeah, if you have a bad day,
Yep.
you can actually send it out via the Blackberry PIN and email, and you can actually also integrate it with other delivery modes. So you can send it out by phone, landline, cell phone, SMS, in order to be able to communicate with the broad range of people you might need to communicate with in a crisis.
So it's not limited to just Blackberries or smartphones?
No, it's not. I mean, there's certain features that work better on the devices themselves, and the PIN network itself is a Blackberry-only network, but beyond that, it can work on any device. Yeah.
How easy is it to actually work?
Oh, to deploy?
Yeah.
It's as easy as using email or your contact management system on the Blackberry. Our theory is if a new user can't pick it up and learn it in 5 minutes, it's probably not any good.
I like that theory. Kind of works for me as well. Have you got a demonstration for us as well?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So we can basically go through some of these applications.
Sure.
By clicking on the icon, you can see that the customers can put, they have a branded portal they can put their own icons with, and then they have a suite of tools that, or applications that they can deploy for both crisis communications and other kinds of incidents. I'd say contact management on the device is one of the key ones. So being able to store all the contact information from multiple sources, and that can also have a PIN or a picture involved in it too, and it keeps it all up to date. So when it changes behind the firewall, it's up to date here. There's an instant messaging application they can use to chat to those groups, and they can attach things like location or a picture off this camera to communicate with their friends.
Really? Okay.
Their colleagues in a crisis. Obviously, storing the information, the contact management right on the device is key. So whether it's plans, policies, procedures, or contact information, floor plans, all that stuff can be stored right on the device and kept up to date wirelessly. So even if the networks, for whatever reason, aren't there, or you're in an area where there's no coverage, all the content is actually on the device.
That's good idea.
Yeah, well, I think if you go back a few years, especially in the crisis emergency management area, customers would store all this information in a binder. And when something happens, they'd leave the building, but they wouldn't have the binder.
But they'll always have their...
But they'll always have that on their hip. So the theory was if you could have the information on your hip, you'd probably leave with it.
Very, very interesting. And how easy is it to deploy on all the Blackberries, for example, to get all these programs on here?
I think one of the challenges, several of the challenges that we do see in wireless deployments are security and transport, and Blackberry really takes care of that in a way that a lot of the other providers don't. So for getting the applications on a Blackberry, all you really need is the email address of the device. You can send it a link, the person clicks on it, the application comes, the data all comes. And if you're a company and you're deploying it corporately, you can actually automate that so that the users don't even know and it just shows up.
What kind of businesses would this be targeted at?
It was originally we targeted it at, well, the companies who were interested in it tended to be larger, so and often regulated. So financial services, insurance, brokerages, the governments of all flavor, federal, state, and local, provincial and municipal here in Canada. Anything involved in critical infrastructure, so utilities, telecommunications, they've also been large users. And in fact, when it comes down to, Mike, it's the most important thing the companies can protect is their brand and reputation. So in fact, the larger that they are, the more they're interested in this kind of thing, it's turned out. And while we do have quite a few SMB type customers, it's the big ones that seem to get a lot of the value.
Just quickly, you recently acquired another company. What did that bring to you?
Well, we merged with MBizTech in the fall. They were another Canadian-based software company, and they had some great products for database access, so getting access to any kind of database that you might have behind your firewall out on your handheld at any time. Forms, so being able to fill out forms, integrating with barcode scanners or Bluetooth pucks or RFID readers or signature capture pens, so that the device can actually be a full office out in the field. Some GPS tracking apps that we find that customers, is very important for them to be able to pull the device off the hip a couple times a day.
Yeah.
And then it becomes sticky. So, you know, sometimes if you're really well prepared, you might not have a crisis for a while. So it's good to have a lot of operational things you can use as well.
Great. Rob, where can people find out more information about Wallace Wireless?
Probably the best bet is the website, wallacewireless.com.
Great. Rob Moffat from Wallace Wireless, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.